I've seen and heard the destruction that brother has done in our community. I've heard the poison that he's poured out over that air in our community.
Has the podcast kind of helped your marriage?
The podcast wasn't meant to help the marriage. The podcast was really meant to help me. Because before the podcast happened, there were conversations that Sid and I were having because I was mentally ill. And he was the only one that could have those conversations that would make me listen. Because he would say things to me that challenged me to my core, that made me have conversations with myself. And some of those conversations were very hard. They were very ego crushing. It was challenging to a place where no one had ever challenged me before. I was used to being the authority. I was used to saying, this is what it is, this is how it's gonna go, especially when money got involved. Oh, I'm really the boss now. So no one had ever had the kind of conversations that would make me change my life and save my life.
Do you feel like you have grown in the marriage with the podcast? Has it gotten better?
Yeah, because I've gotten better.
Okay.
You know,
what were you kind of like dealing with, if you like to comment on that? What does that mean? You said mentally ill.
When you grow up in what's misery, but it looks normal, so you don't know to call it misery because it's normal behavior. And I was raised in a tension-filled home. And I was raised around women that were mentally ill too. And when I say mentally ill, it's just a lot of things we were raised to believe and conditioned, and the traditions that's cemented in us. And I wasn't willing to let it go. I was strong in being mentally ill until my friend said, let's have some conversations. And it was those conversations that were taking me to my knees, because no one had ever said it and put it like that before. And I said to him, I said, Daddy, I know I'm not unique. And I know there's a lot of people out there that's mentally ill just like me. And could you please do this show so we can have these conversations, because I believe it will save people's lives.
You think at least what you were dealing with is kind of connected to this big conversation now with African Americans and dealing with that? Is that kind of falling into that? What you had personally going on?
When you say connected?
Like, there's a big conversation now about mental illness in our community, and Charlamagne the God, he's one of the people that try to advocate it constantly. Like,
I won't even accept that he is advocating for mental illness. Stop it, Leonard. Whichever camera is mine, Leonard, you're advocating for mental illness.
He's big on that. That's his thing. Why that response to him on that?
That response to him on that is because I've seen and heard the destruction that brother has done in our community. I've heard the poison that he's poured out over that air in our community. Now, everyone's allowed to change. Let me say that. Everyone can wake up and say, you know what, I now see it differently. But I think that the only way we make change in our community is at first acknowledge we were part of the damage. So I say Leonard and we laugh, but in all seriousness, I think that brother played a big part in the destruction of our community. Nevi?
But not a big part, because his span of time doing what he's doing or has been doing, I can't give him that type of negative credit, but it's the equivalent of saying there's a level of perpetuation of fame and a lack of empathy that I've seen him indulge in. When I watched, obviously Monique's interview with him, now he's speaking in reference to women's rights and things of that nature, where no one would question any of the kings of comedy. If you look at their career from DL to Steve to Bernie to Cedric, working consistently, flowing, no question. You look at the queens, what's the difference? And other than they're women. And there's a level of acknowledgement that wasn't given. When you see him having the interview with Kanye, and that man invites him out to his home, and then after interviewing with him, he's donkey of the day. There's a lack of empathy that this man gives to the community. So if you're an advocate for it, then that means you remove donkey of the day and you understand that people make mistakes. And or there's a level of consideration for people that I haven't seen him give, because it's more about ratings, it would appear. Somebody may have spoken to him and maybe he's opened his mind, his heart, and things of that nature. But there's a coarseness to his energy. There's a lack of connect to his people. And it's odd to me when I hear people and see him on CNN and they talking to him as if he's some authority. He hasn't had the tenure in this life to have the authority, because when you're an authority on dealing with people, that same authority is accompanied by empathy. And he has not yet been in the company to have accompanied empathy into his way of being at this juncture that I've seen. So I don't want to say he's the reason why, but it's just intriguing that you say that this is what he's a part of. And I hope that he's really about it and starts to be a little bit more considerate of others who may have made some mistakes along the way, or what he considers to have made a mistake. And speaking up for black women, as she has, as well as black men, which people don't know about, cannot make you donkey of the day.
See why we're together.